Let's take a look at a project expense journal. Project expense journals are configured in the General Ledger module. They use the same framework as a general journal, however, with a different look and feel. Let's get into Dynamics AX and see how we configure them and discuss some of the key setup details. Specifically, we'll look at setting up an expense journal, creating a new expense journal, and we can show how journal descriptions work with an expense journal. Okay, so we're going to go in and create an expense journal. And to do so, we actually do not go to the project management and accounting module. That's where you set up your hours, your fees, and your beginning balance journals. But we actually go to the general ledger. And what we'll do here is we'll go under journal setup and then journal names. And what we can do now is hit new, and I'll just call project expense, and we'll create a project expense journal. And the main thing that you need to set up here is your journal type, and that's where you need to define project expenses. There you go, and then define a voucher. Those are your two required fields. Oh, it's not, there we go, I'll pick a different one. Good enough. All right, a lot of these fields aren't even applicable to the journal that we're using, so we're just going to leave it at that. The two things that we need to set are project expenses and assign a voucher series, and the rest of the toggles we're not too worried about at this point. So we will save this, and then we'll jump over to the project management and accounting module, and we'll just create an expense journal just to show you what that's like. So here's the journal form. And if we want to flip it to all and see all journals, whether they're posted or not posted, you can take a look. You can see there's been quite a bit of work in here, but nothing that reflects open journals. So there's no not posted journals. We can create a new journal by selecting the new button. And then you can define which journal name you want to use. Right now, the default journal is project journal. And just to reiterate, you can set those up in the project management and accounting parameters. But I will pick my project expense journal. And then the default description from the journal name setup pulls in, and then you can look at all the other information that it shows. And we'll just flip through the tabs real quick. So the general tab is showing some of the general information that pulls in from the journal names. The setup, I believe, has some of the same information too that pulls in from the journal name. And then blocking, that's if you ever have a problem with your journal, it will block it. So if you have a journal open and your system crashes, it will show as in use, and you'd have to come in here and flip it to no if it is in use and you want to reuse it, we'll say. And then there's your private for user group. So if this journal is only applicable to specific users, or you only want specific users in there, you can assign it to a user group. And you can set up default financial dimensions. And then there's always the history tab. So anyways, we can go into the lines and start adding lines. And you can see a lot of the information already populated for us. We got a voucher date in there just of today's date. Our voucher number populated based on the number sequence that we assigned. And then we have a project date, which is always the same, defaults to the same date as the voucher date. Voucher date is what's going to post to the ledger. Project date is what's going to post to the subledger. All right, so we can pick a project, and then we can pick a category. And right now I'm leaving activity alone because we haven't discussed that, but you can code things with an activity number if you want, which is another way you can report on it, or you can actually view your estimated costs versus actual costs at an activity level as well. But we'll get to that in subsequent modules. So I'll pick a category and we'll just say it's a flight. If you want to define a resource, you can. You can actually make the resource required at the category level if you want to, but I haven't in this case. And then we have descriptions. So you can type anything you want in here and it will take it, or there's default descriptions that you can pick from out of here. And some of the journals don't have this drop down, but they still respect the search name. So for instance, if I type in May exactly like it shows in here, it will pull in the full description. So you can see it put in May hours for me. So define quantity, a currency, then you can put in your cost price. And I believe I have set up where the sales price will just be marked up based on what we put in for a cost price, so cost plus. So you can see that it bumped up the sales price for me. And then the other key feature of expense journals is that they have a definable offset account. So you can define that offset account, and you can see that it defaulted in for me to the 601504, which is flight expenses. And where that's coming from is I already have it open on a different tab here, but there's a form called default offset accounts for expenses, and that's just found under setup posting default offset accounts for expenses. So if you jump into that form, it brings you into here, and then you can basically define things at a resource level, a category level, or a project level, or a combination of those. And then you can define what the offset account is. So you can see for flights, which I have 601504 mapped to, that's what pulled into my expense journal. The other thing you can do is you can use any type of offset account type. So if you want to pick vendor or customer as the offset, you can. If you pick vendor, then you have to define which vendor this is associated with. And just a note, since this form actually uses the general journal framework, you can see that some new tabs got introduced, the cash discount and the invoice, and you have to specify some information on those, not on the cash discount. I guess if you had a cash discount applied, you could. But the invoice tab now is going to want an invoice number. It won't let you post without it, but there's just other information that you have to define as well. And you can see that the 1099 tab showed up too, in case this was a 1099 transaction. I'll just have it reinitialize a value for me so I don't have to worry about the vendor scenario here. I'll just pick flight again and define my $500 cost price, and then I'll type in May. There we go. So we have a transaction entered. If you want to add another line, you just hit the new button to add another line. But other than that, you can post. And then this post option is a little different than the hours journal that we already saw. There's the post button, or there's the post and transfer. So post is just going to it's going to run the validation logic and then try and post, while post and transfer is going to post, and if there's any lines with errors on it, it's going to transfer those to a new journal. So I'll just post. Yeah, one cool thing about this journal as well is since it's using that GL journal framework or general journal framework, the inquiries button's available, and you can actually get to the voucher directly from here, or you can use the print option to print out the different options that it has as well. So you can print the journal or the balances. Okay, so that's what I had to show you about a project expense journal.